Hey, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hanging On to Hope podcast.
I'm Brenda J.
And I'm Karen Wonder.
And we are hangingontohope.org.
This podcast is intended as educational and is not psychological or medical advice. Always consult a professional when needed, and we disclaim any liability in connection with the instruction, information, or advice given.
So this is exciting for me. I'm so excited to be with you guys and doing something I love, because I just spent the whole day doing things I didn't love. So now I'm happy. Yay. So I'm
a little
excited.
cherry on top of your day.
Yay. Exactly. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Hanging On to Hope podcast. This is Brenda J, and I'm here with
Karen B. So glad to be with you all again.
Today, we're diving into our first 4 episodes of the Religion Business docuseries, and we've invited a couple of special guests to join us, a few incredible women that said yes to being part of this conversation. Okay, so our first guest is Mandy, she's one of our board members, and our second guest is Jessica, who has a nonprofit called Fire Revolution, and she helps human trafficking victims. And Mandy also has her own nonprofit as well. So we're going to have them tell a little bit of their background here in a minute.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
And honestly, we have no idea what they're going to say.
This is all as we go.
Yay.
Conversation. So we just want to hear honest, real reactions. We're all in this conversation together.
Now, I was personally blown away. I watched all 7 episodes. I think I finished them on Sunday.
Oh.
It just hit home in a lot of ways that I didn't expect. And all I can say is I'll talk about it a little bit more in a minute.
Yeah, I've only watched the first 4 episodes, but even in just the first 4 episodes, there's so much to unpack: the abuse, power, silence, and how some church systems have protected institutions over people. It's definitely tough to watch, but I think it's a very important conversation to have. And I love what they're doing, trying to bring reform and accountability to the church.
So we want to hear from everyone. What stood out to you the most overall in these first 4 episodes? What had the biggest emotional impact, and what made you stop and say, wow?
Yeah, just share your honest reactions and feelings before we dig into each episode.
All right. Just kind of want to hear what you guys had to say. Did you want to start, Mandy?
Sure. I have always known about financial corruption in the church and nonprofits, but never to this extent. It really surprised me how easy it is to hide money by becoming a church affiliate and using a tax-sheltered business to accomplish it. I was surprised at how grossly deceitful churches are when using words like parsonage. And it's this multi-million-dollar home. I've stayed in parsonages before, and nothing like what is being represented in this docuseries. The amount of rabbit holes you could go down in each of these videos is insane. I don't believe in making pastors and nonprofit leaders live in poverty at all. I think there's a balance there, but I honestly don't know how these people sleep at night.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen both ends of the spectrum where pastors and their family get so little that they don't have enough money to feed their children.
Yeah.
You know, my husband was one of those kids.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I worked at a church, this is not for all churches. And so I don't want to put a broad blanket statement on that. But like I got paid, when you really calculated it out, it was like $3 an hour.
Wow.
And I was putting in 50 hours a week easy. But so I think there's like this balance that needs to be found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There. But in this docuseries in particular, it was just shocking to me how far out of the box they were willing to go in order to help their bottom line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were some pretty extreme examples and a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Mandy and Jessica, have you met before?
No.
Okay.
Hi, Mandy.
Mandy was part of the nonprofit prayer group too at the beginning, but she moved to Florida, to the beach.
Oh,
To the white sand panhandle.
Get out of the
Florida.
heat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the bugs.
The promised land.
And she's on our board, and she grew up in churches, and kind of your background, you're very familiar with churches and nonprofit and all that. This is what she's always done. So for her to watch this and have it impact her in this way did you want to tell your background a little bit, Mandy?
So my background, I've been in my entire life, right? So over 40 years now. I've been in the nonprofit sector intensely for over 20 years, worked a lot with maternity homes, pregnancy centers. I mean, I've just been involved my whole life pretty much because I have a heart for God, a heart for people, and I love it. I love ministry. But when there's abuse involved, when there is people that are taking advantage of you on either side of the spectrum, whether in servitude or financially, like it just becomes exhausting and you can get drained very, very quickly. And especially when you see corruption in it and, you know, you start to kind of discover these things along the way. And then you think back and you think, what organizations have I been a part of that did stuff like this? And I just went along with it and I supported it and I, you know, touted what they were doing. And it just really makes you want to take a deeper dive into whoever you're getting involved with in that sector, because so many people just trust, right? Like they just throw their money out there and they trust.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think of so many different organizations we supported when now like understanding what abuse is, what actual abuse is and the meaning, like the definition of it and what that looks like and how it takes place in churches. I think, oh my gosh, like how much money did I throw at these places that preach this stuff, where I end up having to help the women on the back end because of the damage it did.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And helping them out of that abusive situation, or like, it's just mind boggling.
Yeah.
It definitely is. Well, thank you for sharing that. Jessica, do you want to tell a little bit about what you do first so our audience can understand like the background of where you're coming from?
Sure.
Okay, great.
So I did not grow up in the church. I didn't actually go. I share with people that I was a 9/11 convert. When 9/11 happened, I thought we were all going to die. And when I died, I didn't want to go to hell. I wanted to go to heaven. So I brought me and my children to church. And my background is that my mom's a survivor of human trafficking. I was recruited later in life. It was a huge trauma. And praise God that he was able to turn it around and use it for the good and the glory of his kingdom. Like, I have no background in nonprofits or church and the finances. I will share, I was thinking about this today. I'm the 23 years, thereabouts, 20 years that I have been going to church. I'm attracted to the mega churches, to the bigger churches. I just feel more comfortable. It's just my preference. And the series was incredibly eye-opening. So I have a nonprofit that assists women in human trafficking either exit out. Our primary focus is on a survivor community that struggle with their relationship with God. So we're here to help them along their healing journey. And within that healing journey, when they heal their relationships, helping them to get an actual authentic view of who God the Father is and who Jesus is. And sometimes, you know, within their background, they may have been abused by a spiritual leader in their community, or their church was the one that trafficked them. So trying to repair that relationship, along with bringing awareness of what human trafficking looks like in our country. We focus primarily on domestic human trafficking, so trafficking that happens within the U.S. And so going to church was very different. And so the docuseries literally just blew my mind. I do remember as a child that my dad used to, my exposure to church as a child was my dad used to play TBN in the house. He believed that it drove out the spirits, or, you know, set the mood, the atmosphere in the house. And when I was a kid, so Billy Graham and Oral Roberts, and I knew a little bit about Jim Bakker, but not a whole lot. I remember when that whole thing went down. But I just remember thinking as a kid who didn't go to church, some of the things that Oral Roberts would do, like, it didn't make sense. Like, he would lock himself in some tower until his congregation raised enough money to have him come out. And
I forgot about that.
Oh.
you remember that?
Yeah, now that you said it.
I was like, who is this crazy person that's trying to raise this money and locks himself in a tower until somebody gives enough money? Like, it was, my thought process wasn't, you know, that type of a Christian. I wasn't a church Christian. And I remember when I was little about his pilot,
Kenneth Copeland.
Yeah. I remember when he was like a nobody. He was just a pilot. to Oral Roberts, and that's what he wanted to do. And I thought it was weird, like, as I got older, okay, now he's a pastor. Okay, now he's leading a church. And the first church I actually went to was underneath his covering, or part of his affiliates, or whatever they call them. And, now I'm kind of looking back, like, my eyes have just been open. And I think about running my own nonprofit. My first exposure to nonprofit when I became an advocate in human trafficking with one of the bigger human trafficking organizations here in the Valley, and watching how the grants run, and just how they fundraised, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just thinking about, now I'm just like going back in my mind, like, when I donated to this thing, did the project ever come to pass? And I remember some of the projects never manifested, and even to the money that I donated to. And so
I was not expecting to hear you say any of this. I didn't have any, so every person, the docuseries brings up different things.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. But yeah, go ahead.
Process.
Sorry.
Like, after I watched each one, I would give myself at least 24 hours to process and, just reflect on how I was feeling, getting angry, and talking to the Holy Spirit. Like, I got really angry. The thing that impacted me the most, I think, was the guy that was taking advantage of women.
Yes.
And I think in episode 4, how
Rabbi Zacharias.
Yes. Yeah. And then the one where the parents, like, I don't know how they invested in the real estate, or if the real estate was donated to them. But then the kids just, like, sold all the property. I'm like, what are you doing with the money then?
They bought first private residences, with it.
And as a person that's struggling with her own nonprofit, making sure that I'm a good steward with the money.
Yeah.
It just, like I said, it blows your mind. But the fact that, people that are getting hurt, and my takeaway from it was making sure that people are aware, like, really thinking about their donations and where the money is going.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Did you want to go, Karen?
Well, I mean, I like that is the focus, is that, I mean, his whole purpose of this is so that the donors can see it, that there's transparency. If they want to give to a church where the pastor, lives in a parsonage that's, huge like that, that's their choice. But to know where it's going, I brought up a lot of feelings for me too, like anger, and you go through all those feelings because, I know my dad growing up, my dad always would say, he only went to church like Easter and Christmas, but he always used to say, they just want your money. And, and just so to see how it is being abused. And that, I just read, because we keep up with Julie Roy's, and she just talked about that another worship leader is now turning it over into a church, and you're like, oh, all right, why is he doing that? Now that you understand how it works, you just see, I don't know, it just brings up so many emotions too. But I like the fact that it's a hopeful goal that they have in mind, that we can all look at these, eventually if they get the viewers they want, which I hope they do, to be able to have something that you can see and track it. Cause I'm that way too. We've been going to this new church, and I'm already like, well, would they be transparent with their book? That's what I want to ask them, because that's important to me now. It's just one of those things that if they're not, then why? What are they hiding? So yeah.
Yeah. It's done so much in me that I've been going to different churches over the summer because a lot of pastors are on sabbatical. And there was a church in Tempe called City Church, and I gave them my card because they run a homeless ministry.
Is that the one that has City Hope?
Yeah. And he gave me a tour, and it was incredible that like 3/4 of their church has a little store where you can shop on Saturdays. They feed the homeless once a month in a little kitchen. About 125 homeless people. They're doing those things. So there are churches out there doing those things, and I'm seeing it. So there is hope.
Yeah.
And that was just super cool. And I was like, thought he was going to need help, but I mean, they have all the similar connections that we have. And it's just really, really nice to see that. I don't know how they got their funding though. I didn't ask that. I was just glad that they were using their church and their resources in that way.
Right.
So, but I think for me, I'm just going to only give like 2 little tidbits so you guys can talk about the single episodes more, and I don't take up a lot of time. What it did for me, so my background, in case there's any new listeners, is I was married to a pastor that started a cult, started sleeping with one of his cult members, and still has his has some followers. And so this really, really hit home to me. We also Karen and I have a nonprofit together. So there was just lots of things that hit home to me, but I've been to so many different churches. I grew up in the Lutheran church. My mom worked at the church. She pretty much ran the church. She was a church secretary. And then I became non-denominational after that. And I've just loved seeing what other churches are doing and visiting other churches. And I usually have a home church that I'll belong to, but I feel like with our nonprofit, we're supposed to help women in all churches and men, anybody that's abused. So what it did for me was seeing Ravi and seeing all the examples that you gave, Jessica. It made me realize that I was grateful to the Lord that I did not support my ex-husband in the things that he was trying to do where it grew into that size, and neither did my children. We were completely against and saw that it was becoming a cult, that it was a cult. And none of us supported him, and we actually got him away from our lives, and the other churches didn't support him. So I feel like thankful for that. My kids are still upset that he's still hurting people, but I'm just grateful that because I see Robbie's wife became part of the board and she supported him, and then his daughter took over the church. And so they were supporting the things that he was doing that were wrong too. And they knew it because you know, and I knew. So that's why I had to get out of that marriage. I couldn't support what he was doing. So I was grateful for that and processing just having my own nonprofit and knowing that, like, who was it? Samaritan's Purse just has all this money. Then they're wasting $50 million just on transportation. And then like the little nonprofits, we just all collaborate together, and God works miracles without money. And to see Sister Rosemary say, you can make the change. You can be the change one person at a time without money. And that just resonated with me because she's so right. Because there's so many times where I haven't had money, where Mandy's like, go to this place, get these items. And God always provides all these items. So when she said that, those were the things that lasted with me. And that kind of sums up my 7 episodes, even though there's a lot more, but that way it can free you guys up to talk. But it really profoundly affected me to the point where I started visiting other churches and seeing if they had homeless ministries. Anyway.
So the city, can anyone go in there? Because I mean, I saw it says on the door, no one's refused or something. Or how does
I
that
think
work?
they limit it to once every 3 months, though, for some of their programs. So it's not like Harvest Compassion Center where they don't care. There's no restriction. There is a little bit of restriction on that one, but I just was happy that they were doing everything that they were doing. So yeah. It was exciting to see. But anyway, so I think you're up now with the next. Just briefly go over, like, just say one thing that.
Yeah. We kind of already did our review of it, but episode 1 is called A Crisis of Faith. This episode explores what happens when people begin to question or walk away from belief systems they once trusted. It looks at the emotional and societal fallout and the legal and historical structures that protect those systems, even when they fail people.
It's raw and thought-provoking. So what did A Crisis of Faith bring up for you? What stood out or impacted you most emotionally in that episode? You want to go, Mandy? We'll just stick with the same order.
Sure. I think the first thing is that I've always wondered where particularly the LDS church gets all their money, because they're loaded. I've always known that
understanding now.
Watching that, we're like,
they're loaded.
It's in the billions.
Oh yeah. And even like my kids' school in Arizona, the charter, like they're funding building the charters and all this. And not that they put their religion into the schools at all. They're great schools. I loved it. But the leadership isn't there. But it really was eye-opening to me that they're gaining billions through a for-profit, tax-sheltered, profitable business. What is it? Ensign Peak.
Yeah.
And it's really aggravating. It's really aggravating. And I've heard this is not just Mormons. This is every single denomination. So I'm not picking on the Mormons. This was just one of the first thoughts I had. I've heard of ex-Mormon stories where they were billed for their tithe that after they moved, right?
Oh, after they moved?
They moved away and they were given an invoice of tithe they owed still. Yes.
Because it's mandatory, right? I've always heard it's
mandatory
that they.
It is mandatory, and you will get called out if you're not contributing. And the goal is to make people feel like they owe the church something instead of the church being a solve for the community, right? Like it's you owe us, right? The part about kingdom builders gets me really fired up. Because I've been in churches, like I have attended churches that participate in raising funds for that. And they make you feel super guilty if you don't contribute. And knowing this is how they run their leadership sessions, like that whole part about them going to this week-long retreat at a Ritz-Carlton, I think it was.
Yeah.
And having like 3 hours be like a session. And
I wanted to go like just on vacation and relax.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Like, snowboarding.
Yeah.
Massage.
Yes.
We wanted to go.
I'm a kingdom builder.
We should book a girls trip next year there.
Yeah. Girls trip to kingdom builders. Yeah, no, it's like, knowing they run their leadership sessions like that is awful. And not to say they don't use funds to go toward needs, I know they do, but there's so much to be uncovered there because money is fallible, right? Like $1 on paper doesn't necessarily mean $1 for a desk unless you know who you're giving it to and if they've been vetted, right?
Yeah.
And that you can trust them. So what was incredibly interesting to me, and I'm still like uncovering these truths in my life right now, in my journey, but is the history behind the church. It's traditions and how like we're set in our ways, even when they're not healthy, right? Yeah. And for so long, I just did things because it's just what I was supposed to do as a good little Christian, right? However, after I found the courage to question is when I found the true Christ.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is something I'm still journeying through and studying and relinquishing all of what I thought I knew. It was honestly really emotional for me to go through because now after digging into Greek, how translations came to be, the culture behind it, expectations, etc., I realized that most of the organized religions have been passing on pagan and government thinking into their congregants and putting God's name on it, also as taking God's name in vain. I don't believe most of them do it knowingly, right? I don't think they're being malicious about it. Some of them are very unwitting about it, right? But my Greek teacher he would say that if you don't know how to study the Bible in Greek, you miss about 50% of what it's saying and its meaning.
Wow.
And my final thought is I love how he said that if the church's heart is for profit, you will see it.
Yeah, it's like that. I liked how it started on episode 1 where he was talking to the pastor on the couch. I don't know if you remember and he was saying there's 2 different stories. If you're following the business model, you're not following the same, you're not going to have the same goals that Jesus had if you're looking at your church as a business.
Exactly.
It's 2 different stories. It's not the same story.
Very much.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I started to think, is it even a church if money becomes an idol because you can't serve both God and money? So if money comes before God, then it's not even really a church. I started thinking like deep stuff. Really?
Yes.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, Jessica, are you ready?
Yes. I'm sorry. I'm all listening to you guys. It was really,
I know it's good stuff.
Yeah. Cause I think the biggest part, cause he talked about the LDS church in episode 1 and then the kingdom builders. And I remember, I think a couple times I've ended up in kingdom builders and it's like, they talk about the gospel, but the energy, because Nate didn't even get a chance to go in to see what was going on. Like he should have wore a little pin cam.
Oh, so you've been inside.
Yeah, I've been inside and it's very uncomfortable because it's more about money and same thing. Like we're going to help the kingdom. We're going to fund the churches. We're going to fund these nonprofits. And it was about networking businesses with one another.
Yeah.
But what made me really uncomfortable was they wanted money.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not going to take money from my nonprofit that could help a victim that might want out for some banquet hall with other people that have money. I'm not going to do that. And then I think one of my friends was in it, and we're not friends anymore. Cause I'm like, I'm not doing this. And I'm really, really uncomfortable. And I feel like you're exploiting me, especially as a victim that was, that's a survivor of grooming and recruiting exploitation and gaslighting and manipulation. It's a trigger for me.
Yeah.
And so and I didn't even know that about kingdom builders. I had this experience that made me really uncomfortable. And I'm still for me, I'm trying to process the way Jesus lived, out in the wilderness during the 3 years of his ministry. And then the wealth, you have these churches that talk about Jesus wants you to be rich and, cause so you can fund the kingdom. And I'm just I get really uncomfortable with that. And, originally, when we started, the churches that I got, was a part of for a few years. And, and just looking back, so there was just a lot that was revealed or came up for me as far as the gaslighting and the manipulation. And is this really what Nate was talking about? Is this really how Jesus wants to fundraise?
Yeah.
Right.
And the whole thing about, it would be nice to go on a vacation. Maybe that's their thought process. It wasn't the thought process when I only went to one meeting, but the whole thing about, just laying on a beach somewhere and having somebody tend to you, I'm it just doesn't feel right from this side. So those are my thoughts on the first episode.
Yeah.
But especially when the church is funding it.
Yes.
That's what's great. That's the problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do they call it? The bait and switch, or is it catfishing when, the church is we're going to develop you as a leader, and you go, and it's not about developing you as a leader. It's about getting you to give us money or make money so we can take your money or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another one that I went to this year that hasn't gotten called out yet, but they were asking for $40,000 from people.
What they say?
To do real estate and stock classes from them.
Was it a Kingdom Builders or?
No, I'm not going to say the name because it hasn't been called out yet, but yes.
Wow.
It's gonna be because but they're doing the same kind of thing. And I went to it. So I kind of fell for it at the beginning. And then, but I'm way too cheap to do that. But a lot of people weren't. They just worked out the money.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah.
So where are we at on 2?
Yeah. Episode 2.
Okay. So those were really, I'm just blown away by that you actually have personal experiences with some of this. And so it really resonated with you guys. So next is episode 2, Mechanisms of Corruption. This one dives deeper into how abuse is allowed to happen and keep happening within nonprofit and religious institutions. It looks at how secrecy, unchecked authority, and lack of accountability create a system where corruption can thrive.
So you hear from whistleblowers, experts, and see documents that show how deep this goes. So what struck you most in Mechanisms of Corruption? What moments stuck with you or make you see things differently?
So for me,
To be continued. Stay tuned for next week's part 2. You don't want to miss it.
Thanks for tuning in to Hanging On to Hope. Check out our website, hangingontohope.org. There are resources on there, and if you would like to donate or volunteer, you can do that through our website. We are a brand new nonprofit, so we appreciate any and all support. And we thank you for listening, and until next time, keep hanging on to hope. We are evidence that there is hope and healing for you, and our passion is to help you find it too. So thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for listening, everyone.